when I get up on the mic, I'm a cassidy.
What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from SBMTG down there on the youtube.com. We like magic. And today, I'm going to do a spooky deck for you. The question is, though, what's actually spooky in today's magic? You think now would be the exact right time for a spooky deck, because Innistrad block is in standard. You know, we have like vampires and werewolves, but those have been forever ruined by Twilight. Spirits are basically just like a pile of floating rags. So there's that. Zombies are oversaturated and impossible to take seriously at this point. And hey, all three cats are here. Hey guys. So I figured we'd do something actually scary. I think there actually is a real scary creature type available to make a deck around right now. And that's spiders. Yeah, it's probably not the best thing for a YouTuber to admit his greatest fear on camera and then upload it to the internet. But still, I figured I'd be honest with you guys and say that I'm not really scared of that much in the world. But one thing I am legit scared of is spiders. Whenever I'm cleaning out an old closet or an attic or putting on an old jacket, or sometimes even when I'm like in bed, I'm like, is there a spider under the covers right now? Because by the way, just so you know, that is how the most spider bites take place. Thanks for putting that fact into everybody's head. Sorry about that. The point is that spiders are seriously actually creepy and scary and exist in the real world, unlike imaginary things like vampires and ghosts and zombies and stuff. So let's do something I am actually for shiz scared by, and let's talk about spiders. Green-black spiders, to be exact. The good news, if we're going to build this deck in the format right now, is that it's only going to be like 40 bucks, something like that, at the end of the day. And half of the budget is going to one card, so most of the deck is really, really cheap. Now, that one card that most of the budget's going towards is a legitimately terrifying spider that's a really good build around right now. Let's play 3 copies of Ishkana Graph Widow. Now in this deck, you actually win the game off of her activated ability, like more often than not. I've probably won more games doing that than any other way, because we're going to establish board stalls, we're going to remove key creatures and things, and sort of set up a position where we're just in a grind with them. This is a mid-range deck, it does that pretty well. And once we get that going, then we can sort of grind out the game a little bit, and once we resolve an Ishkana, then we can just kill them over the course of 2 or 3 turns with their activated ability. It works. Not only that, but Ishkana is one of the better creatures in the format right now, because she both blocks and kills Smuggler's Copter, and she blocks Avacyn. The 2 most important flying creatures in the format, Ishkana can help you handle. And if you get the spiders off of her Delirium too, then hey, you can take down Avacyn pretty easily too. So basically it comes down to this: if you're playing spiders in standard, it's because of Ishkana. We gotta include the card, and even though she makes us play a Delirium theme, totally worth. But we have to play other spiders if this is going to be a spider deck. And although we don't have a large range of options as far as spiders go, and I'd really like a good spider at just 1 or 2 mana, that would help out a lot in this theme deck. We do have some spiders that performed a little bit better than I thought they would, so let's take a look at them. We're going to play 4 copies of Netcaster Spider, 4 copies of Swift Spinner, and 4 copies of Gloom Widow. Netcaster Spider can block Copter and Avacyn. By the way, it can do that, and kill the Avacyn. It will die to both of those creatures, but it can at least trade. That's kind of cool. And then Swift Spinner, Flash is always nice. The problem with Spinner is that it can't block you know, a Copter and kill it. It can't block an Avacyn and kill it. But it can be a flash blocker that can either take out a smaller creature or just jump in front of a bigger flyer. So there's that. And then Gloom Widow, you know, only blocking creatures with flying kind of sucks, but again, this can trade with a Smuggler's Copter, so nearly all of our creatures can either block and kill or at least trade with a Copter. That's important in this format. But Gloom Widow is at least a good deal. 3 mana for a 3/3 ain't too shabby, honestly. That makes a grand total of 15 spiders, and 15 creatures in total. Every single one of our creatures is a spider. We're going to make this a mid-range deck. Like I said earlier, we want to get to the point of the game where we're just grinding out the game. We can start killing them with activations off of Ishkana. And to do that, we have to play a good amount of removal so that we can keep the board clear in the early game while we're trying to get set up a little bit. So here is some removal for you right here. We're going to play 4 copies of Deadweight, 3 copies of Grasp of Darkness, and 2 copies of Murder to start off the removal train. There's more, actually. Deadweight is very good in this deck because we're playing a Delirium theme, and it's an easy enchantment to put into the graveyard. Just kill a creature with it. You got an enchantment in the graveyard. It can also keep things from crewing vehicles, you know, even if you don't kill the creature. So that's pretty good. And we need something to cover the board in the very early game against all these aggressive decks in the format, or else we'll just get crushed, you know, towards the mid-game when we're still trying to set up. So Deadweight is a very good pick for just the 1 mana. Grasp of Darkness, just the 2 mana, and takes out nearly any, especially early game creature in the format, and can take out Copter at instant speed, as can Murder. Both of these are important because they're instant speed and can kill vehicles. But there's actually more removal at 3 mana. We're going to play 2 copies of Ruinous Path and 2 copies of Flaying Tendrils. Now, I wouldn't be mad at you if you just added more copies of Grasp or Murder instead of Path, or maybe put Path in the sideboard. But we are seeing a lot of Gideon, and green-black Delirium is rising again, so we're seeing a lot of, out of the sideboard Vital Force, but in the main deck, we see a lot of Liliana. So, Planeswalkers are still a thing in the format, and I like a main deck option for taking them out. And yeah, we could play To the Slaughter here, but I just think Path is a purely better card. And I know that I could be challenged on that. I just like Path because it can be a creature, it kills creatures, it kills Planeswalkers, it's a very, very utility card. Then Flaying Tendrils is yet another, just like Deadweight, sort of a stop button, a panic button on all these really, really aggressive decks that try to kill with Reckless Bushwhacker and stuff by turn, 4 or 5. So Flaying Tendrils can be very, very good against those, enough to warrant a main deck slot because we are kind of weak against those decks. We are playing some spells that aren't removal, which is crazy, right? But they are spells we got to play. We're going to play 3 copies of Blossoming Defense here. Blossoming Defense is super good for a lot of reasons. I've seen a lot of decks that play 4 Blossoming Defense in the format right now. I can see why. It's so good. Like, it's basically a 1 mana negate, sort of a turn aside. Against creature removal, so that's really, really good. We want that, especially with only the 15 creatures. We want to also protect our Ishkana so that we can keep using her activated ability. So Blossoming Defense, awesome, and it's super good in this deck for a tech reason. We have 2 different 2/3 spiders that can't necessarily do anything against certain creatures, like Netcaster. It can block and kill Copter, it can block and kill an Avacyn, but it will die too. And Swift Spinner is even worse in that situation. It can block Copter, it can block Avacyn, but it will die to both, and they'll stay on the battlefield. Blossoming Defense helps you even those odds. With that 2/3 Swift Spinner, you can block an Avacyn, play a Blossoming Defense on it, and have a 4/5 reach, killing the Avacyn, and it won't die. So that is really good. Obviously, the same trick works against Smuggler's Copter. So right now, Blossoming Defense just has so many good applications, whether you're playing it as a counter spell, whether you're playing it to kill a blocker, and that they didn't see that coming. Even sometimes you'll play it to just get an extra 2 damage in sort of dire situations where you're just trying to finish the game. So there's so much play in Blossoming Defense. The card is amazing. Seriously. Better than Giant Growth. Seriously, I've staked my claim. The card is way better than Giant Growth. But anyway, on to the next. We're going to play just 1 copy of Traverse the Ulvenwald in this deck to finish off the spells here. Traverse the Ulvenwald, we could play more copies of, but I'm trying to keep the budget down a little bit. There's a lot of stuff you could do with this deck if you had more money or better cards that are already in your collection. But I am trying to really shoot for budget here, so I'm only going to play 1 copy of Traverse. Plus, there's not a whole lot of creatures in the deck that we play like 1 or 2 of. We're not really doing that toolbox strategy. So I think just 1 Traverse is fine, because sometimes you will want to either get another land drop, that does happen, or you'll just want to go get your Ishkana like right now. So, at least 1 Traverse I think is prudent. To finish off the main deck here, I want to play some artifacts. I feel like Planeswalkers are too expensive to play, but we're playing Delirium. I want to play as many card types as we can within the budget here. So I feel like artifacts are imperative. They also have to be cheap because we're doing a lot on turns 3, 4, and 5 already, and we want this artifact to be able to be played early in the game. We also want it to be able, to be put into the graveyard very easily. So I went with Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot in this slot because I think that it fulfills all of those things. You could also go with Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot in the same slot, by the way. We're not doing anything with the energy, and I haven't been able to think of anything I want to do with the energy other than maybe Die Young, but I think our removal suite is just better than Die Young already. So you could play Woodweavers, especially if you have a lot of aggro in your LGS, but I don't have any other way in this deck really of drawing cards, and I'd really like to be able to draw cards. So I went with Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot here. Cheap, very, cheap not only to buy, but cheap to play. That's good. Goes into the graveyard easily, draws you a card. Our deck wants that. So I went with Metal Spinners here, although I will acknowledge there are other slots you could go with. I just really want to play at least 3, if not 4, artifacts in the deck because of the Delirium. There's 25 lands in this deck. I really, really want to play Evolving Wilds because of Delirium. Same thing with Gaia Reach Sanitarium, easy way to put different card types into the graveyard. And you get to draw cards too, so that's cool. And aside from that, you could play Hissing Quagmire, you could play, Blossoming Marsh, if you had the money. But this mana base works, but if you wanted to go a little bit more consistent with it, you could always, shell out the money for those dual lands. Here's the sideboard for you. We're going to fill out that playset of Blossoming Defense, definitely, especially against control decks that play a lot of removal. Clip Wings is mostly in there against Emrakul, but it'll also kill things like Smuggler's Copter and Avacyn as well. Natural State and Appetite for the Unnatural, both in there, obviously against artifacts. Big important thing you got a sideboard for now. Transgress the Mind, good against the Emrakul decks, but also good against control and a lot of stuff. Transgress the Mind is actually one of my favorite cards in the format. Essence Extraction, mostly again against Smuggler's Copter, but just good against aggro in general. Same thing with Flaying Tendrils. And then Watcher in the Web didn't make it into the main deck, but I do want it to have some spot in the deck somewhere. It's the only other spider available to us to play. So against aggro decks and stuff, you might side in Watcher. He's just sort of in there as an honorary sideboard slot because I want to play all the spiders in a spider deck. And here are your power rankings right here. A final score of 58 points, which isn't bad for a deck that's going to cost you about $35 or $40 on TCG Player. Not bad at the end of the day, especially when half the cost is taken up by a 3-of Ishkana, you know. And go ahead and get those. Ishkana's so good. I've played with her in a bunch of different decks at this point, and she's always like so impressive. Like Ishkana, one of the better creatures in the format. I will stick by that assessment, because every time she comes onto the battlefield, she brings spiders with her. You know, you can block for days. You can use her activated ability to win the game. She blocks, you know, the two most important flying creatures in the format. Ishkana is a stupid card right now. So building a deck around her ain't such a bad idea. And yeah, even though some of our slots are taken up by these sort of subpar spiders, we do get a little bit more play on Ishkana's activated ability for doing that. They're not bad against the flyers in the format right now, and we still have a bunch of open slots to play things like Removal and Blossoming Defense. So the deck is actually pretty well rounded at the end of the day. That's all I've got for now. Let me know how you felt about this Spiders deck down there in the comments. And if this looks a little weak, by the way, you could always start off in your budget, 35, 40 bucks, building this deck, and then work your way up to Green-Black Delirium. I think this is a good starting point, a good lily pad for Green-Black Delirium, you know? Not a bad starting point at all, because that deck's going to cost like $250, whereas this deck only costs like $40. So what are we doing next time? Next time, I'm going to do one more spooky video, and this one will probably come out on Halloween if I'm doing my math correctly. But next time we're going to do the scariest thing imaginable: death and taxes. A lot of newer players have never been exposed to a death and taxes deck. You know, there hasn't been one in standard for a while. But I think there is a good case for one, so join me on Halloween for death and taxes. And with that, I'm tapped out. And I've never used that joke before, and I probably never will again, so it's really bad. It seems like the kind of thing a Magic YouTuber should say at the end of a video, but it just doesn't come out right. It just seems like patronizing. But anyway, I'm Dev from SBMTG. You know, sub if you're new to the channel. If you want to get all the awesome deck techs, please subscribe. And then like the content if you like the content. That helps me more than anything you could do. I'm Dev from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards.